cameras, and if he was a little late, we'd still get to him.
Okay, we need to formalize all the stuff that's in the contracts, agreements, etc. So if you want to look at them or make a motion, whatever. Michael, apparently you have seen them.
I have
Because I
one.
have your signatures on some of
Are you
them.
on?
Yeah, no, that will be. Okay, I'm on.
Okay, and also motion support of the consent items, which are 4. That's approval of weekly claims list, certificate of survey, agricultural exemption for the Tacoma Greenville Community Center, budget amendment for the Sheriff's Department on video cameras, and budget transfer for the Commissioner's Office on the cordless microphone.
And this is October 1, 1998, and I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. And this is for the Sheriff's Office,
Okay.
video cameras for the patrol cars. Is Jane coming?
No, she's not here.
Oh, well, sorry for hollering. Well, Jane has some comments here, that is good.
Let me just keep the ones that we've signed over here so that we can have them all put together.
Jane is on vacation.
Yeah, Paul just told me that, so.
But she added her comments. She wrote, I put a note on there, must have.
It's right here.
Oh,
It's right here.
Okay.
Okay, we have the request for the additional full-time employee in the clerk of court's office. And Jane has said concerning the clerk of court's request for an additional FTE, clearly the courts are becoming progressively busier. Whether it be now or next fiscal year, another clerk is probably in order. Only one has been added in that office in the last 10 years. It would be more effective to add the position before the office becomes significantly backlogged rather than after. District court contingency has $50,000 in it. Part of the reason to leave it at that level was to be positioned to address this request after it was clarified. The funding is there if you choose to approve this request. Michael has said he agrees if we could find a place for the new person to conduct business. PSC Katie's letter attached, which she says would require additional space as well as equipment. But I did visit with Judge McLean, who had visited with Katie and Judge Larson and Judge Henson, and they seem to think there's not going to be a problem finding space, and they really want the person badly. So, depending on what you want to do, I support doing it.
Well, my comment was based on what Katie said, because she's the one who's going to be responsible for this person, and she's exercising concern about the place and the equipment support. And the judges can say what they want to say, but she's the one who is the supervisor, and she's the one who has to provide for that, and she's the one who has the question. And I just want to know where they're going to go and how they're going to be supported.
Okay, well, the space is a separate issue from equipment. I'm sure that the contingency money in the court fund will take care of the equipment. It's a question for to put them. And if you like, I'll have Luanne have her come down.
I think it would be good.
Okay. To discuss the request for a person. Okay, so while we're waiting, we have a request to annex Orchard Park phases 1 and 2 to the ISID 901. You have a question on phase 3, Michael?
It seems like, you know, phase 3 is the one that's going to be coming up a week from yesterday.
Right.
And there isn't room in the current allocation to include that in the RSID 901. And I'm just wondering what the implication of that is.
Well, I think they're separate issues.
Well, should it be approved, they'll be on septic tanks and probably in the worst place.
Well, let's not address phase 3 when we're trying to decide what to do with phase 2.
I understand. My whole basis of asking the question is there some implication we need to be concerned about? And are we locking ourselves into something here?
I don't believe we are.
Well,
I believe they're separate phases, and we probably required them to annex into 901.
I think they were part of that exchange, the Dolly
They
Stewart
were from Dolly Stewart.
numbers. Can I say, Michael, that, whatever the decision, phase 3 would be over and above. And, unless you would find some in phases 1 and 2 that you wouldn't put in, which I suspect that's not the case.
Yeah, I heard Kevin Mitty make the comment that the only reason why he didn't consider sewering phase 3 was because he didn't have available to him the number of connections, even if he did annex. And I look at.
You know, phase 3?
Right.
Yeah.
And so it just seems to me from what we're wanting to accomplish sewer-wise out there, it would make more sense to include phase 3 in the district and take, if we have to, whatever number is equivalent to phase 3 out of phase 2.
Oh, you
You see what I'm
didn't
saying?
mean that.
I really do mean
didn't
that.
think you would say that.
It seems to make some more sense just from a water quality standpoint out there. The further you are away from that river, the better off you're going to be.
Well, Nick is going to be here at 11, and he was the developer's representative for this. We could ask him when he comes and hold on this if you want.
I'd prefer to do that.
Okay, I'd also like to tell you that while I was in Helena, one of the vendors had, let me get a copy of it to show you something I handed.
Hi, come in.
When you have the media, right?
All was not
But it doesn't matter, we
Small
have
news day.
priority to see it.
See, which is my best.
You want to
That's
Yeah,
return to
I want to show you this, and I've ordered 100 copies of that so that I can hand it out. It is a washing machine, and while I hate to try and sell someone's product, this product can save 6,000 gallons of water per home. And I think it's worth looking at, especially in areas where we have potential septic problems. So I thought I would get some copies of that to hand out so that people who are interested in less impact on their septic systems might be interested, because I didn't know anything about it, so.
So maybe take and have 2, and it's wonderful, and I've got one.
Oh, you do?
Is it Maytag?
Yes.
Here you go, an advertisement on him.
Advertisement on MCAT.
Paid endorser.
Is it?
Paid celebrity endorser. Yeah.
Well, I think
That's
anytime we have problems, we need to find mitigating things to do, and this is one that I think is a wonderful choice, so, anyway, all right.
Carefully to position behind the camera.
Smart girl. Could we all do that? Is there room for all of us over there?
Ceremony.
Then they'll just turn the cameras a little bit funny. Okay, we have your request for your additional person, and we do have the funding in the district court contingency fund, but your question also, or your statement said it would require additional space. In talking to the district judges, they seem to think that downstairs was not a good idea. Upstairs in your vicinity was a better idea. Do you have a place to put the person if we grant it to you?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
All right.
It's interesting because your letter exercises concern about what's happened since you wrote your letter.
We will find room.
Okay, I will make a motion and we'll move. Thank
All
you,
right.
Katie. I
Maybe
appreciate
can
it.
that's
leave
all we
now.
need.
That's
That's all
all
you
you needed?
Unless you want to stay and hear the motion, then
The
we'll grant
concern
what
was
you
that
want.
you evidenced concern, and we didn't know.
And it will just make things a little tighter, but we will definitely.
Pretty soon
Someone
you'll
will
be
be
as proud
sitting on someone's
as the
knee.
attorney's office, if you're not
Okay.
already.
Okay, Fern, I'll take your motion.
Okay, I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the request for additional full-time employee in the clerk of court's office,
Is there a second?
the motion.
All
That
those-
includes the support, correct, for
with the support of
Space and
equipment.
I'll second the motion.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Your motion has been approved. Your request has been granted.
Katie, when are
We
you
will
gonna
accept
advertise?
champagne
When
at
are you
noon.
gonna advertise for the position, and how long is it before you fill the position? Do you know?
I will go down
I know.
now
I have the right
and
policy.
advise them that it has been granted. And then we will do the in-house and then the outhouse.
That's right.
So it'll take a month at least, once
It takes generally, let's see, it takes 4 days in-house. This is Thursday, it'll be probably posted today. And that will then close Tuesday, and then if we go out, it will go out, it will be in the following Sunday's paper. So I would say yes, 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks before we have on stamp. And that will give us time to rearrange and get organized.
True.
That's good news.
Okay. And so in that, then the support is also granted, so we can buy another desk. To
Right,
scrunch
that
in.
was the support
Okay, and
condition.
computer. Great.
State can provide computer.
Yeah, the state's providing a
Oh,
computer,
yes.
so.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you for coming in. Just as an aside, Paul, it's not on the agenda, but the last administrative meeting, there were several items on the agenda that I just felt blindsided by that, and from the looks around the table, many of the people were, including you. We need to do something about that. I talked to Luann a little about it, and she gave me a pre-notification of the agenda items today, but it seems like we need to have some notion, because I really don't want to be asked to make a decision about an agenda item that I've only seen for 10 seconds. And,
Not fair that you're asked.
yeah,
I agree. My policy is that if there is anything of any substance, that the commissioners need to see the background material on that prior, and that's the intention of these.
You know, any seat is a
Commissioner
good
action
seat,
point.
except Barbara's
do
seat.
you need a memo from us
Unless
to
you wanna
support
run
that?
that
'Cause,
machine to
you know,
talk that.
unbeknownst to you and also the board, there were agenda items added last time, and what you
I
suggested.
would like to just maybe make a comment at the meeting, so it's on tape. That would be helpful.
Okay.
And then from that, I'll discuss with Elaine how to provide some control.
Good, well, at the.
I need to give her something that she can use to, you know, to be the buffer between, you know, add this on at an hour before the meeting. So,
We're talking about the added
there
discussion.
are always gonna be exceptions, but, we'll, you know, the policy is to get the requests in so they can be circulated prior to the meeting.
I have a letter here from Horace on a rubberized railroad crossing, and I'm not sure what area we're talking about because he doesn't say. Do you guys remember?
Luann said that came in, and it has to do with farm land.
Okay, well,
And
that's
so
farmland
that
stuff.
may be a part of our conversation with Nick.
Okay, all right, I will hold off on it then. The other thing is a counter offer on Lone Road property, and Jerry Ford is right here. Are we ready to do that?
Yes, Jerry, got this late yesterday, I think, and,
Very late.
that's the reason it, is
And you are,
come in, as late as it is, although we expected it and had it on the agenda. We didn't get this material until this morning. If you will just take a look at, first of all, the management team met with Jerry, 2 days ago, and we agreed that we would attempt to, take that 2-acre kind of center cut that they wanted right out of here, and, add another approximately 1 acre to it, which includes this finger, and indicated that we were willing to sell those 3 acres, plus or minus, at $1.90 an acre.
$1.90 square foot.
A square foot.
I like the $1.90 an acre, it really
They,
has some interesting thoughts.
They countered informally now. And, plus a very a significant part of that was that we would be given at least a 45-foot easement
Good.
down this side of their newly acquired parcel and extending up to the parcel that they have, in order for us to maintain access in some fashion to this area. Are you gonna?
I was gonna say with the 45-foot easement, the critical part of it is to the north. Right now, on their certificate of survey, there appears a 30-foot access easement from Palmer down to what is our ownership. If we're not getting rid of the entire bench, should that be the decision, we need to maintain access to what we retain. And the easement would be 45 feet down and enough across this corner so we can access.
Can I ask, is that aligned with Palmer? No, it isn't.
Palmer it connects to Palmer. Jerry, do you have that larger version of the contour map? I think it would help the commissioners. This one? Yeah. To get oriented. Right now, on the certificate of survey, it describes this piece up here. There's a 30-foot access easement that runs from Palmer Street, which is up here like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 30-foot private access that runs down to our property boundary.
Mm-hmm.
So you could, by using that easement, drive directly from Palmer Street to this bench area.
Let me also tell you that I spoke to Ken Staninger this morning, because I was supposed to call him back last week and get it done. And he tells me that this land is not needed to build the big building that they want to build for the state highway department, et cetera. They would like to buy it to straighten up their property line, which we've had that same problem myself out there. And, I don't think we're gonna get more than $1.50 a square foot out of it, so I think we ought to
Probably not.
personally accept it.
Well, let me finish giving you the background, and then.
Could I still have the access question. So, the proposal, counteroffer, has an access.
Our
No,
counteroffer,
it does not.
Our counter does, theirs does not.
I know, I just want to know what
Yeah.
this connects us to.
Okay, that's,
That connection
Connects us
to
to
Palmer
that
Street, all we
street.
wanted to do was move it from the one side to the other side, because they said their building was gonna crowd the property line on the east originally.
Would you draw on there where you think that we will place this easement should we approve?
No, you're not gonna get one according to this
Okay.
proposal. That's what I wanna,
I don't have a colored
let me try to give you the background.
Thank you.
We required them to give us this easement of about 45 feet up to, through their property to Palmer Street.
Yeah.
What they have come back with is saying, that's not possible because our site plan has the building going right up to the setback limits along this side of the property.
So they would be sitting on the easement.
Yes, they need that easement for,
the
just
space.
for their site development. So they have denied our request for that easement. They have indicated that they are pursuing, this is their posturing, to redesign their site so that they will not need the 2 acres that they would like to have in order to do what they want to do. Now, what we have on the table now is a 3-acre parcel, more or less.
And the original offer was for
For-
4,
Original offer was for 2.
okay?
We counted and said, you gotta buy it all. They said, we're not interested in it all. We're down now, and then they had another counter offer to give us $2 a foot just for the choice 2 acres. We said, we can't leave this remnant out here. We'll sell you this part too. Give us the easement, and we'll keep this acre over here. The current offer is, we'll take the 3 acres, we'll give you $1.50 per foot for it. We can't give you the easement, and so you have to be concerned about how you're gonna market this 1 acre parcel over here. That's where we are at this point. They're threatening to say, we're being forced now to redesign the site without the 2 acres that we felt would be useful if we could have that. And that is gonna go forward if we don't resolve this very soon. You can read that yourself.
Don't we have access from Santa Fe Court or whatever it's called?
We don't.
No, it's, no,
If we succeed in realigning the boundaries, we might have, but that is,
Okay, I thought we did.
Now-
come up on
now let
that.
me give you a more macro.
Let's wait till Michael gets back.
And Jerry, I will ask you to address the thoughts that you have about Wilcox in this area back in here, after we have 18 acres and everything that's out there. That's been appraised at $2 a square foot. That's $1,570,000. This 3 acres at $1.50 a square foot will bring $196,000. In order to get the full 1.5 million on the remaining 15 acres, the price for those have to be at $2.10 a square foot. If you were thinking about possibly countering at $1.60, just to see how much more you could, that would add another $14,000,
And it might chase our buyer.
$13,000 to the total price that you get. And in order to get the $1,570,000, you would then only need $2.08 a square foot. So you reduce the price by 2 cents a square foot, to give you some perspective. Now, I think the major concern is that we expressed was we don't want to get landlocked and find a parcel that we are unable to develop because it's only an acre, and the cost of doing something that mitigates this bench and makes it accessible from this might be objectionable to any purchaser of the remaining 15 acres down here, or this 14 down here plus this one would be 15. I'd like to have Jerry just indicate the discussions he's had that he's related to us with this property owner about squaring off this lot.
I've talked to a prospective purchaser of that land. However, they say that they need access to it from up here at this point, but I don't know if they can get access to San Jose Court or not. I don't think they can.
Oh, they own that, they have the ability to provide access
yeah,
themselves.
physically, they could access it. The issue would be a little bit of fill to bring, as you can see here. There's our property boundary. There is Santa Fe Court. They own all of this, so they could, if they filled here, get access.
Who is they, Michael?
Right now, I believe the ownership is Warren Wilcox, or he's the
Yeah.
contract purchaser.
Well, it's a corporation, but,
Okay.
He has the land that abuts
right.
the cul-de-sac, but when it abuts, it breaks off steeply, and you
Right.
have to have.
But we don't have currently an offer for that acre of land.
No,
No.
no, that's speculative, entirely speculative.
Have you talked to Warren?
Yes, I've talked to him a lot, but I have not been able to get a concrete offer with a rate to him.
But he's kind of interested.
Well, he'd like to square his up. See, right now, or what he's got is this corner here, which is kind of, goes at an angle, and
Yeah.
so what they would like to do is kind of square that up, come up and meet that property line there. So they would take that 1 acre on the top, and then have frontage on Mullen Road too.
I was thinking,
So that's
he
kind of,
does have.
that's what they're talking about, but I don't have an offer on it.
Well, it seems to me that all the people who own a portion of this land are interested in squaring up their property because it's all a jigsaw puzzle. Both us, Warren Wilcox, this piece on top, Bob Brew, you name it, everybody's got a problem. I wish we
Well-
could all work together like adults and fix it.
Bruce out of it more now though, because Wilcox bought his
Okay,
land.
okay,
He's
I
out,
didn't know that.
so he's out.
okay.
So that, and then this would kind of square us up because that takes that little section of, up on the bench there and would leave us this part. As far as the access goes, that's a question I don't know. Apparently with their counteroffer, no matter what we did, we're not gonna get an access on that side.
Reading
And I would recommend that if you take their offer, that we bump it though. That comes contrary on part of it.
The other thing we need to be aware of is their offer doesn't include that.
that.
It
This
doesn't.
is different shaped. No,
So it,
you can see here, this
I
is.
thought it did.
No, they drew the line at this center of COS 2011.
Is there something here? that,
Nope, that's the same one.
Same
Are
one.
you saying only this little end, Michael, or are you saying the entire finger?
No, I'm saying this little, they're offering line, it stops here.
Okay,
So we still have an inaccessible tiny parcel above the bench.
It's 70 by 200, 70 by whatever, which is an issue to me, because that is clearly depreciated.
oh,
Oh,
certainly.
yeah,
It's
and
worthless.
and of no value.
That would be worthless.
This is severely depreciated. I mean, and let's assume that we could never get access anyplace else. You can justify doing the cost of getting to this from here easier if you've got a bigger project than you can if you've just got a 1-acre site.
Yeah, I think the way I look at it, we currently have access on the north to this property. And that's by easement to this property at some point
From where?
Palmer.
from Palmer.
Okay.
That exists. If we accept this offer, several things happen. Number one, we isolate two parcels which become basically worthless to us.
At least this one's worthless.
Yeah, well, this one is questionable worth too, because if there's no access, you're gonna get a reduced offer if you get any offer on it. We make this portion of it, which is on the side hill, basically worthless because
It's worthless anyway.
no, it's not worthless anyway. Well, in my mind, it's not worthless if it's contiguous, but it does create a problem for us. And the selling price is reduced, and making the rest of the land unusable just doesn't make this an offer that's acceptable to me.
I would say on the slope, and one of the things we talked about that, and our goal was to hold it line at the top of the slope for a couple of reasons. One is we figured whoever's down here is going to have a lot more interest in the appearance of that slope than whoever's up here. The other thing is that the slope is not buildable, it's distance for setback purposes.
that is an
It is distance for setback at the same time, when you look at the value, which is $210 an acre plus, people are simply going to exclude that portion from that high price.
I've got these are offers that come and gone, but they show,
oh, good, yes.
this shows that access,
Get past all the good
existing
stuff we've got in
access
here.
easement. You can see this shows a 30-foot easement through there to, it would come into our property at this point. That easement lies here, it's a 30-foot easement, brings you into the top of the bench and would give you access.
Is that why they're not buying this, so that the easement is there?
I don't know. that,
Well, they want the easement to vanish.
the other thing.
Because they're buying this from Rocky Mountain?
No, no, I don't think they're buying
It's
that.
up here.
Okay.
They're buying, this is now divided into two parcels. It's D over here, which is 9.37 acres, which they're buying. This is another parcel, which the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation headquarters are located on.
Okay.
There, and that has, because of financing encumbrances, that I don't think they can do anything to move into this on. So what they're buying is essentially that part of the bench that is directly contiguous to what they're purchasing. It's this part and curve around here. You know, I mean, I understand why they're structuring it that way. We, I guess, whatever rights we've got, I wouldn't release here unless we had the whole bench sold. And at this
On
point.
the easement, you mean?
On the
Okay.
easement. At this point, if we sell them this piece, we might as well give the easement up because it no longer gets us to the balance of our ownership except for, maybe this would be a great mobile home lot.
Oh, yeah, right.
Affordable housing. But,
That's not big enough to put enough on to count.
You know what concerns me is that we know what we've got to get to make the jail balance.
I hear what you're saying, Fern, but my feeling is, and in discussing with Tom Stevens, he also agrees that the upper bench and the lower bench have different, or the lower property have different values, and that the lower property is worth more than the upper property, and I believe that. And if that's the case, the bottom is probably worth $210 a foot, while the upper part is worth less. That's my personal belief. If I were gonna buy something, it wouldn't be the bench, unless I had access off Santa Fe Court, which if you can't get that, it's not worth that much. But you've got access from the bottom down off Mullen Road, you've got visibility from Broadway, you're close to the Reserve Street area. That is, in my mind, eminently more saleable land than the bench. And so that's why I'm willing to sell it for less, because I think it's worth less.
It may be that the whole bench is worth less, but we're certainly far more devalued than $1.50 a square foot for these two.
Well, and I wouldn't be willing to give up the middle piece of property without the sale of the piece that you've got your right hand on, and without the easement. And based on what Ken told me today, they didn't need this land to build on, they needed it to straighten up their property. In which case, unless I'm not looking at it correctly, I don't see why the easement would be a problem. So I think maybe somebody needs to go back and have another visit with the representative for the buyer.
I talked to him just before I came to the meeting, and he said there's no way they're gonna give up the easement,
Well, then.
because I knew that was a point that we had.
Oh, sure, we can't do that, we can't make a piece of property we've got inaccessible, that makes no sense.
Well, the only problem with the easement that I see is the current one we have is 30 feet, which is not enough for a county road.
Right,
And so I don't know what we can use it for. That's the only problem I see with that 30-foot easement.
we have done roads that are less than 30 feet.
I think if there's ever development in that area, you can always procure additional easement. I don't know that that's a problem. By virtue of the fact that we have it, it is an encumbrance that is valuable to us on the property. And one thing about this that I notice is that this offer is, in my mind, substantially less value to the county than the first offer. The first offer was for everything above on the bench, which eliminates the access problems, but albeit at a lower price. It seems to me that was closer to $250,000. Now they want to put us in substantial disadvantage and at the same time pay us less. It's just an unacceptable
What
offer.
was that first offer?
About $250,000. It was for this whole thing.
I thought
No.
it was, no, I thought it was,
Never do it.
Well, let's look at it. I believe that it was.
I thought it was just for a little chunk.
I'm not sure which. We,
but I'm talking about the extent of the land.
Is this the one you've got?
This would be the September 18th.
That's the date of
That was for the top, everything above the bench,
The original
from here
offer,
to there.
the original offer was $123,000. Was made on September 3rd. That,
But do you,
We have here, it says the purchase price, that it's assumed at $243,936,
what's the date on it, Mike?
and
18th
it's
of September.
18th of September.
So that's a late offer.
And that offer included everything from this point to this point, above the bench, at $1.40. Now they're saying they'll give us $1.50 for this little chunk that eliminates access and makes these two pieces unusable. It's actually a lower offer than the other.
I think what you're looking at is our counter offer to them.
I think you're
so-
correct. I do think we did say we wanted to sell it off.
No,
I don't think so.
no, here, Wayne, $5,000, $1.40 for 4+ acres.
But,
Oh, $1.40 for 4 acres, yeah.
but isn't all of this more than 4?
No.
No, that's it.
That's
Okay.
all.
So their offer to
You
us
have a
was
good memory.
complete. So this is a substantially lower offer than what they originally had on September 18th.
Well, you know, there's all kinds of variations here. They're giving us $2 for 2 acres, $1.40 for 4 acres, $1.50 for 3 acres. You get all kinds of variations. And it looks like, you know, what we really need to do is to counter this last one. And from what I'm hearing, the idea of us getting stuck with this little piece here is distasteful. They've already offered $1.40 for everything. Do you want to counter on that?
I thought we did.
Something less than the $1.90?
Didn't we counter $1.90 on that one?
You did.
All of them?
We did.
Yeah, yep. And, you know, we've gone through 2 variations since then, you know.
Well, we have a realtor that's representing us. I'd like you to tell us what you perceive that we ought to ask for.
Pardon?
How much should we ask for this land? You have a better feeling of the value than I do.
Well, I think about $1, they're offering $1.50, I think $1.70 would be reasonable.
And $1.75 was what I said last time. that I
So
would
we're
be
right in the
to
same
do.
ballpark.
So,
Are you talking for the 3 acres, Jerry, or the 4 acres?
3 acres with that little tip down there on the,
Yeah, yeah,
but we have to have the easement yet.
okay, and, all right.
Well,
Well, they're not gonna give us the easement.
Well,
Yeah,
they
I
said
don't-
they
I
would.
can't agree with that.
problem that I see is being so resistant to any offer may leave us with a nice big hole in our pocket. And there may not be any purchasers who come along. And I would prefer that we counter them back a reasonable offer and hope that they will accept it. At least we've negotiated in good faith. I'm not willing to say they have to pay $1.90 for land that I don't think's worth $1.90.
Well, that's the issue, I think, at this point.
Yep.
Do you wanna counter with something less than $1.90 or not? And I would say that it should be for everything, because we know we're not gonna get the easement.
I think either it's for everything or we get the easement.
Yeah.
And that's
I would
critical.
agree with
It's
that.
truly, truly critical.
I would agree with that.
We have countered with only $1.90. Is that what we've countered?
Yes, yes.
So we've not,
That's the only thing that you've agreed to, sell the whole thing for $1.90 a square foot. We dreamed up a variation that included the pink area, and an easement down here at $1.90 a square foot. In other words, we took this off the table,
mhm.
and that was since your $1.90 for everything.
It was the discussion.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's when we
proposal,
learned
what
that the
we did.
easement was
Yeah.
not gonna be.
Yeah.
uh,
And so, you know, their proposal came back like this.
mhm.
So, you know, where you are is $1.90 for everything. Where they are is $1.40 for everything. And
Well, I
there are
don't think they
three
are.
very, well, they have, we
The
have an
proposal is $1.50 for part of
That's the
everything.
latest one.
But we had originally,
Right.
we
With
had
no
at one
easement.
point $1.40. They've come up to $1.50 for a portion of it, 2/3 of it,
And no easement.
and no easement. That's, so
No,
are
I
you
think-
willing to back off any on your $1.90 for everything?
I am. And Michael isn't, and Barbara doesn't wanna raise anybody.
I'm willing to go $1.70 and they either buy the whole thing or they give us the easement. I think that's fair. I'm perfectly willing to do that.
At $1.70, what does that mean we have to get for the,
Well, I think about $2.06, I'm guessing. $1.60 is $2.08.
okay.
$1.50 was $2.10. So if you get if you go up another 10 cents, I think it probably reduces it about 2 cents each time. So you need about 2.6. If you got $1.70.
In my mind, we're still better off without any bench remnants of this property.
We're saying they take it all,
And
Michael.
Yeah, any counteroffer in my mind, if we decide to consider that, needs to be for all of that land up there.
And that's what I'm thinking about.
Okay.
And we did counter with $1.90 for all of it.
Yep.
And we get back
Well,
very creative response,
yes.
with
But
lots
we
of
encouraged some
stuff.
creativity because we suggested this, moving the easement to here and taking this off. We suggested this.
Okay,
So we created that.
at $1.90,
at a dollar.
okay. I appreciate that.
Just
That's really
keep
pretty
things moving.
creative.
Michael, when you say all of it, are you saying move that line down to the bottom of the bench, from the top down to the
Well, I
bottom?
think.
Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm willing to stay above the bench at the same, I think Michael articulated a value in that.
Okay.
But it certainly isn't a $2.10 value, that's for sure. And we're talking about a $90,000 acre price here for slope land that's unbuildable, and people aren't gonna pay that. So we have to get more for this
Yeah.
down here
Yeah.
than $2.10 an acre. We're gonna have to do that, because this is basically a
And
giveaway.
it would be discounted.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing. We're discounting the value of the land that we have down below by making this, the land that we're selling just above the bench. That's creating some of the problems. So that's a reason why you wouldn't want to reduce that.
That can be
Price.
landscape though and used for
I
setback.
appreciate it, but not at 90,000 an acre.
Well, it might have so much setback anyway, and so much,
Well, I'm, and I feel like that we're all exposed all over the world, so our negotiations are gonna be, on their screen before our letter is on their screen. I'm just debating between $1.75 and $1.70. But I want us not to jeopardize our, budget for the jail project. So, and also, I think that this counter offer is manipulative. That's what I think it is.
Well, let me ask Jerry another question. In your mind, is there any significance between your challenge in selling this property to get another 6 cents for the lower 14 acres? Another 6 cents per foot for the lower 14 acres, or keeping it at $2 a foot for 18 acres? Do you see any difference in your challenge there?
well, the challenge with that acreage in the first place is the ditch because of the access across from Mullen Road.
Mhm.
Crossing the ditch, and as you know, is expensive. So that part is a little challenge, but I would say we should be able to get more for that lower part than you can the upper part. I think it's worth more money. I would agree with Fraser who said that.
Let me ask a question, on the jail project. Do we have a security issue? Well, apparently we don't, if we have a pre-release center there on the bridge.
No,
Is it possible for us to enhance the value of that property by providing that as access to that property?
I
I know the city would like that because it eliminates an access off of all.
I think that would be very objectionable to have public use of that in and out all the
Well,
time.
I think that it would depend in some degree on the use. I'm sitting here trying to visualize the design and location of the existing and planned improvements. I think that in theory, it would be possible to bring that access in at some depth, but I really think that we would be better telling a seller that we'd utilize, or telling a buyer that we'd utilize our contract with Martel and drop another bridge in for $60,000, which is what the bridge cost. And we've talked with them a little bit, and they said, well, yeah, if you came in with a change order, we could do another bridge for that price for you on down the ditch. The idea being to try to get a flavor for what sort of discount that we're looking at on that property.
Did I hear you say the city was reluctant to have
Well, I didn't-
many
no.
accesses on Mullen?
No, I just think that on a main thoroughfare, the fewer access points you have, it's just better for traffic management. Paul makes a good point though about, you don't know what the design of that property is gonna be, what kind of traffic it's gonna hold. It would really encumber our property a lot at the jail site if we use that bridge. Mike brings up a good point though, if we can get a bridge in there for $60K, then it's easy, it would enhance the value of that property somewhat. And it's hard for me to imagine that people are going to be prevented from accessing or buying that property if they really want it for a cost of $60,000. $60,000 is a lot of money, but it isn't a lot of money by comparison to the whole value of that property. So I don't know that the access issue is as big as.
One of our reluctances, it's the same issue we had when the city said, where do you want the sewers stoked out? I said, how about the middle of our frontage? Because I don't know.
How do you know?
Sure.
What's going. And we brought the water over to the edge of the property.
Those are
Let me
incidental.
ask, I'm gonna move us on. If we ask for $1.75 a square foot and say if we lose that easement, we simply must have more and they need to buy all of it, will they counter with less?
I think that probably the end of the negotiations.
You do.
I think that if you countered with $1.70 or in that area with the part that's in pink there, I think that would be acceptable if you want to give up the easement. But no way, I don't think they're ever gonna give us our easement. That's kind of what the stand they kind of
need to buy
taken.
the whole thing.
Yeah,
Well,
Simple
so
as that.
that's what I said,
if they buy the whole thing, then we can give up the easement.
yes. And I'm asking you, if we countered it at $1.75 a foot, would you lose this sale?
I think so. But you never know till you try.
Well, I think the first thing I'd say is we have to sell it all. And if they say it's out of question that we'd have an easement, then our answer is we have to sell it all, and we have to decide how much a square foot. And they've offered for all of that.
$1.40, you get $1.90.
But
If
with,
split the difference, that's $1.65.
Transportation?
And they offered $1.40 at one point in time for everything. You stayed at $1.90,
It's 50 cents difference, okay, gotcha.
so that's how far apart you are.
I think considering their second offer, they're really second guessing their initial offer. Again, it's still less than what they had originally offered, substantially less.
Now, say that again.
The current offer is for about
Oh, yeah,
$150,000,
oh, sure, 196,000.
and the other offer was for $250,000. 244,000.
And this would raise that offer too.
Not much.
It would.
It's by $16,000.
That all.
I'm willing to make a
$16,000
motion
and 10
if you
cents.
prefer.
Yeah, every 10 cents, about $16,000.
So, but we'd be going above $1.40. That was the first offer. Okay. I'll give that an effort.
Okay,
All of it. I move that we counter offer, indicating that we want to sell all of the property on the bench, and that we would set the price at $1.65 a square foot.
is there a second?
No.
I will second the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Well, you know, you found a buyer for the limits. Why don't you find a buyer for this? You're pretty good. Maybe a rock building, manufacturing.
That's right.
Well,
By the way, that
we
was
need
at
to move along.
85% value too.
We have to move along. We have an offer from Sun Mountain Sports for 3 lots in the development park. Carl, do you want to, or Carl Posowitz, whoever wants to give us the background on it.
What,
Thanks for coming, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.
I bet you. You want me to write up the counter offer?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Well, I got a call about a half hour ago to come down to this meeting, so.
So you had a long time to prepare.
Yeah, from Abe, what they asked me to do is we proposed that one layout that had two 60,000 square foot buildings. And at that time, that was what Sun Mountain wanted to do, but since that time has passed, they decided they want to go back to trying to build one building as big as they can, and then use the 2 smaller lots for parking and maybe some future development. So I just worked on this one site plan, which I've given to Sun Mountain. Frankly, haven't heard anything back from it, but then Abe called me and said to come down here and at least show the county what Sun Mountain's thinking about, and then just kind of open it up for comments from the county. So I'll just spring this on you here.
Would you tell us on this map, Paul, which lots we're talking about, please? Not on that map, on this one.
yes. It's lots 1, 2, and 3 with agreement that we would later vacate this portion of Curlew Loop,
Okay,
which has a sewer and water going through it right
thank
now.
you.
And under that scenario, the only access need for Curlew would be to that property, so there would be every reason why we would abandon that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And we're being offered $250,000 for this, and is that all we need to know, Paul?
You saw this once before, and what you need to know is that the only change is the supplemental agreement was changed at through negotiations with MDA and the developer, or Sun Mountain. They gave them another year in which to get a rebate on the sale price, but reduce the amount of the rebate by half, from $25,000 to $12,500. There certainly is not going to be any problem with their being able to get that rebate, whereas previously they had hoped that they would get enough development this year to become eligible for that rebate. So that's the big difference. Plus now, rather than having a 60,000 square foot warehouse on the southerly lot and another 60,000 square foot warehouse on the northern two lots, you're gonna have to explain what this later version is.
Well, this is just 110,000 square foot building on lot 3, and it's pushed to every conceivable setback, so it's all the way, I mean, it's maximum coverage. And then there would be,
Meets the setback requirement.
does meet the setback, but there's certain lot coverage requirements that I think, if this is viewed as one lot, it probably doesn't meet, but if you look at it
In its
as
entirety.
in its entirety, the whole development, I'm sure it probably would meet the lot coverage parameters.
Now, we voted at the Development Authority a week or so ago to do what?
To accept the sale price of $250,000 with a revised supplemental agreement extending 1 year, by which they could get a rebate up to $12,500 based on the amount of taxes that is generated.
And the only thing that we had left in question, if I remember right, was whether you were going to take these specific lots. And I'm gathering that that is the desire, you want these specific lots. And so now what this board needs to do is ratify the action of
Yes.
the MDA. Is that
In
correct?
fact, they say that they're willing to close tomorrow if we can pull off all this paperwork. So they want to close tomorrow.
Let me ask this. It's Paul?
Carl?
Carl. Carl did not know when he came. He's not the negotiator, so I'm assuming that Abe and you have talked.
He's just doing the site plan for him. And when I found out from talking to Carl that they had revised it, I said, well, you know, there might be some questions on how you're gonna, and I said, I don't think they're critical, but I can't answer those if I don't know what's going on. And Carl is kind of saying, hey, all I'm doing is sending them over their ideas and they're sending back changes, so. At least now, Carl has been asked to give you the latest concept, and I think that's fine, and I'm happy that you're doing
Yeah,
it.
and it may not be the last for them for a while. We
Well,
just
the major
go
question-
through major provisions, so.
Major question was whether these were the lots you were going to want, and as I say, this board needs to ratify the action of the Development Authority and agree to sell these lots at the stated price. I would think the site plan stuff could change several times between now and the day you start breaking ground.
Right.
So do I hear a motion to that?
Before you do that, I have a question, not that I'm in on this particularly, but where are you gonna close off the road, you know?
Look here on there, Jerry, you'll see that. And that road only affects these lots that we're speaking of now. And where Mike's fingers are will be the terminus of both of those roads. So the part in between Mike's fingers will be vacated.
This part here.
Yes.
Okay.
on the agenda. Everything that's on the agenda you will have the opportunity to address. If there's any additional issue you'd like to address, please come to the podium, give your name and your testimony. There being none, we'll close the public comment. Thought you were coming to get an agenda, sorry about that.
My name is Ron Ewart. I'm in I live at 520 Skyview. My wife had a little girl yesterday.
I can say, quite honestly, that really was not on the agenda. But congratulations. And you have a little girl, too. You know that. Well, his wife has a little girl, he has a little girl, too. I think you had something to say. The next item is the routine administrative actions, and you'll find them listed up front if you'd like to look at them. We need to formally approve those, and I would accept a motion to do that.
I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the routine administrative actions and also the weekly claims list of $1,080,851.37.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. The next item is a bid award for restrooms at Larchmont Golf Course. Is anyone going to give us a little history on that? Michael, would you like to read that, please?
We've got somebody.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can stand up, Bill. That would be good. Thank you.
Bill Gallagher, the manager of the Larchmont Golf Course. We hope to build a restroom on the golf course. Right now we're using porta potties for this service. This bid was opened. It's the second time we've let out bids for this project, and each time we've received one bid, both from the same company. It did come in over our budgets. We budgeted $14,580. The bid came in at $23,789. We're hoping to we had a savings of over $4,000 on some budgeted items that came in under bid, and the remainder we'd like to take out of our capital reserve account to pay the full amount for this project.
Let me ask you a question, Bill. In the comments here, it said it was recommended to reject the bid, and then down below you say you want us to accept the bid. Would you like to explain that, please?
We recommended originally to reject the first bid, which we let out in the spring. That was the one we asked.
Okay,
we rejected,
thank you.
so we could relet it and see if we could get some more bids.
Okay, thank you.
But the second one was,
Okay, and you recommend we award the bid?
yes.
All right, thank you.
My understanding is that you delayed in order to get past as much of the construction season as you could, and
Right, we thought we'd get more, we thought in the
More
spring
people.
that we didn't get as many bids just because everyone was so busy, and
Yes.
we thought we'd get more competitive bids, and actually in the fall is a better time for us to do it anyhow. The golf course is less busy, there'll be less disruption if we can do it in the fall. So,
is this handicap accessible?
yes, it will be.
Are there any questions for Bill?
Bill, the only question I have is that, obviously it's 40% over your budget. I just wonder where your estimated cost came from.
We did get a bid on this. Originally, we only had one guy come out and look at it. And since then, to hook into the sewer is the main cost. We have to put a step system in out there to hook into the existing sewer line. That's where the mix-up was.
So someone came out and they looked at it, they gave you what they thought it might cost,
Right.
and then you advertised for bids, and the bid was 40% more than his original. Okay, I understand that.
Right.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the award of bid for the construction of the restrooms at Larchmont Golf Course, which would be with the Culver Hill Construction Company, and based on their recommendations for the finding of the extra revenue.
All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. It is awarded. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is CMAC paving in the Rattlesnake area for the road department. Horace, I suspect you're going to fill us in on this?
This is a request to award a CMAC contract for the paving of streets and alleys in East Missoula, Upper Rattlesnake, and Fort Missoula. The project will pave streets and alleys in that area. The cost of the county will be just above 13%, and the state will pay the balance of the contract. On Monday, September 30th at 10 a.m., the bids were opened, and Jensen Paving Company had a bid for $568,120.58. Keeney Construction Company Incorporated was $698,490.24. JTL Group Incorporated bid $971,000 even. And we recommend that you award the bid to Jensen Paving Company in the amount of $568,120.58. This was also approved by the state.
Fern?
Horace, will this be a part of a fall program, or will it not start till 1999?
They may do a small part of it this fall, but most of it will be done in the spring.
Okay.
Horace, for the record, would you tell us which streets and alleys will be paved?
The ones in East Missoula, the northern part of,
You don't have specific names.
no, there's a whole list,
Okay.
and I didn't memorize it.
I was wondering about the one that we had the discussion with the group,
Not Woods Gulch.
Wildcat Road.
Woods Gulch is on there.
Yeah.
Wildcat Road?
Wildcat Road is on there.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to know. Is there a motion?
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, Mike.
Horace, do you have an estimate?
Yes, the engineer's estimate was $674,440.
Do we have that?
It's on the second page.
Horace, I have a question. You remember we discussed that Woods Gulch and Wildcat Road area?
Mhm.
And I understood that we were going to allow them to have millings. And I thought that's what they understood, as long as it's...
We're still meeting, and that hasn't been determined yet.
I think, Commissioner Hart, that what happens if we award this bid, then that would, if there's some change from the contract, it would end up the
Change order.
to the contract, that
Yeah.
deduction.
That really has nothing to do with this part of the award.
Thank you.
One last question is, there's roughly 18% difference between Jensen and Keeney. Perhaps you can account for that. I noticed in hot mix alone, there's 30% difference. And
Well-
between Jensen and JTL, it's about 80% difference.
Yeah.
That's really a significant amount, and it gives me some concern that maybe they're not looking at it the same way.
They understand the contract. The difference between Keeney and Jensen would be that Jensen have their own paving, they make their own mix, and that's the difference there. I don't think JTL wanted the contract, and that's why the bid's so high.
I move that the Board of County Commissioners award the CMAQ contract for the paving of the streets and alleys in East Missoula, the Upper Rattlesnake, and Fort Missoula, and award it to Jensen Paving Company in the amount of $568,120.58, based on the recommendation of the surveyor.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item is a hearing, which is, first one is a request for a revocation of an agricultural exemption and a boundary relocation for Hanson. Kathy Smith of the County Attorney's Office will brief us on that.
This is a consideration of a request to revoke the agricultural covenant currently existing on Tract 1, COS 3451, and relocate the boundary between Tracts 1 and 2, COS 3451, located in Section 25, Township 11 North, Range 20 West, for James H. and Arletha Miller and Terrence L. and Evelyn M. Hansen. Terry Hansen has submitted a request to revoke an agricultural covenant which currently exists on Tract 1 of COS 3451 and relocate the boundary between Tracts 1 and 2 of COS 3451 to create two approximately 5-acre parcels. The current parcels are located off Carlton Creek Road south of Lolo. Mr. Hansen has indicated he is purchasing the agricultural parcel from Mr. and Mrs. Miller and wishes to relocate the boundary between the two to accommodate the two existing residences. The history of the parcel is as follows. Mr. Hansen purchased the original 10-acre parcel in April 1977. In April 1987, COS 3451 was filed, creating Tract 1 as an agricultural parcel and Tract 2 as the remainder. Tract 1 of COS 3451 was then transferred to Mr. and Mrs. Miller in May of 1987. Mr. Hansen quitclaimed half interest in Tract 2 of COS 3451 to Evelyn M. Hansen in February 1996. The exemption affidavit submitted by Mr. Hansen in this matter states he will be transferring one of the proposed parcels back to Mr. Miller. According to the records kept by the Missoula County Surveyor, the applicant has used the exemption to the Subdivision and Platting Act as set forth above.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on this issue? Yes, sir.
I'm Mr. Hanson.
Okay.
And I don't know whether you guys got a map on that, how I wanted to provide that or not, but I kind of drew one up to better see that.
We do.
And I just want to state that the ag exempt was for the pasture of my neighbor's cows, and it's still going to stay the same after I do this. I'm just trying to get the property into two parcels because I built this one building back there several years ago, and I applied for a sewer permit from the health department, and it's already been taken care of and approved, so we're just kind of waiting on this boundary relocation to get this thing through, if we can do this.
Are there any questions,
Yeah,
Mr. Hanson?
I think I have heard this on the health board.
Right.
Weren't you? Yes, you presented this. And the building that you have is actually an apartment.
Was an apartment and a shop, correct.
Mm-hmm. And you could not have
The apartments there.
the
because
apartments there.
It was not zoned commercially, and when I built it, I wasn't aware of that. I built that, and I have since got rid of the people, and it's now an empty building. What I'm trying to do is make this at least a single-family dwelling.
So there will really be two dwellings.
There'll be two dwellings, one on each 5-acre parcel.
Mm-hmm.
It's in zoning district 31, which is a requirement of a minimum of 4.5 acres.
Thank you. I appreciate being reminded. Tell me again, you intend to deed back part of the property to Mr. Miller? Is that what I heard you say?
No, he currently has the deed. I'm buying it back. First, I owned the 10 acres. I sold partial to him.
Yes.
Now, in the contract, when I sold that to him, I stated that I could buy that back at any time if need be, because it was just more or less a long-term lease for him and his cows. And I've talked to him about that. We're in the process of finalizing this deal. And I will retain all the land and be able to do this as far as, being able to get the acreage back.
And what you're asking is that we revoke the ag covenant.
To do a boundary relocation. I don't want
And-
to subdivide because it's already been subdivided. So if I buy it back, I'll then have two parcels, and by doing a boundary relocation, there won't be any subdivision. All I'll be doing is taking it and drawing the line a little bit differently so I can maintain those two households.
The two 5-acre.
Right. There will be no rentals on there. It's just a matter of separating the two single families.
And Colleen, that is what happens when we lift an ag covenant. The lines remain, that parcel remains, but the use can be changed.
That's right.
Thank you.
Michael, do you have any questions? Okay. This is a hearing. Is there anyone who would care to comment on this, either in favor of or in opposition? There being none, we'll close the hearing. Do I hear a motion?
I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the request to revoke the agricultural covenant currently existing on Tract 1, Certificate of Survey 3451, and relocate the boundary between Tracts 1 and 2 Certificate of Survey 3451, at the request of James H. and Arletha Miller and Terrace L. and Evelyn M. Hansen, in that it does not appear to be an attempt to evade the Subdivision Act.
Do I hear a second?
I'm gonna second, I wanna clarify something with
Okay,
Colleen.
go
The
ahead.
original, covenant created the parcel, right?
I am not sure if that is the case, or if it was, that there was a boundary relocation.
Please come to the microphone.
When I subdivided, it was mainly for pasture purposes for his cows. There was never any buildings put on the parcel that I subdivided off to him. I took the 10 acres and divided the 10 into a 7 for him. The 3 kept my house and that other building on there. So I had a COS with me, my residence, and the shop building, the apartment in the back.
My recollection is that you did that in order to provide adequate ground for septic.
Right, there was
at
an
the time.
easement also, there was an easement purchased at the time for a sewer at that time.
And when you created that parcel, what you were also exempt from was lifting a sanitary restrictions. So now you have to do that for
Right.
that parcel because the ag covenant comes off. So in order for it to still be a parcel, you have to
Right.
you have to have sanitary restrictions lifted.
Right, and that's been taken care of and approved by the health department.
All right, well, that's where I was going with it. Thank you, Colleen. That's,
Do I hear a motion?
the motion's there, second, I'll call the question.
Oh, all right, thank you, you're ready. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did I hear an aye? Motion carries. Next item is a hearing on a family transfer for Keller. Kathy?
This is the consideration of a request to create a parcel using the family transfer exemption for tract 49 of COS, it's supposed to say 351. Located in section 13, township 15 north, range 22 west, for Jeffrey D. and Susan G. Keller. Jeffrey D. Keller has submitted a request to create a parcel and remainder using the family transfer exemption to the Montana Subdivision and Plating Act. Parcel is 12.38 acres in size and located off Wombly Lane in the 6 Mile area. Mr. Keller wishes to create 2 parcels of approximately 7 acres and 5.3 acres, one of which will be transferred to his parents, David L. and Betty J. Keller. The history of the parcel is as follows. The parcel was created in June 1974, creating 55 parcels greater than 10 acres in size. Mr. and Mrs. Keller purchased tract 49 in June 1992. According to the records kept by the Missoula County Surveyor, the applicant has not used any exemptions to the Subdivision and Plating Act.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there anyone here for them? Yes, sir, would you like to come to the microphone?
My name is Jeff Keller, and I'm the one submitting the request.
Okay. Do you have any questions for Mr. Keller, or do you have any comments other than what has been said?
No,
I would say, and you probably understand this, but for folks that might not understand it, to ask for an exemption either for the family transfer or for an ag covenant exemption means that you divide the land, but you don't go through subdivision review. And our job is to determine if indeed this is a request for family transfer and whether or not you're using the family transfer instead of going through subdivision review. And in order to just work on that issue, I understand that this is a family transfer to your parents.
My parents.
And do they plan to live there?
That's our hope. My dad has got emphysema, and we're hoping that we can get them to move here so we can care for them.
That's the only question I have.
Michael, do you have any?
I don't.
Okay, thank you. It is a public hearing. Is there anyone who would care to speak either in favor of or in opposition to this request? There being none, we'll close the public hearing. Do I hear a motion?
I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the request to create a parcel using the family transfer exemption for tract 49 of Certificate of Survey 351, located in section 13, township 15 north, range 22 west, for Jeffrey D. and Susan G. Keller, with the intention that the transfer will be to Mr. Keller's parents, and in that it does not appear to be an evasion of the subdivision law.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries, it is granted. You will receive a letter from us telling you that we have approved it.
Okay,
Thank you. And you do understand that getting the slit does not guarantee septic approval or roads or anything else. Thank you.
Our school buses
Zoning,
come up
school
for
buses, anything. Thank you. Next item is a continuation of the hearing and a decision on Orchard Park Phase 3 preliminary plat in Lolo. Somebody want to tell me where we are on this?
Madam Chair, if you
Yes.
desire, staff has a short report for you to
Thank you.
bring your board up to date. I'm Dave Loomis with Office of Planning and Grants, and before you today is a continued hearing of Phase 3 of Orchard Park subdivision in Lolo. You have a brief staff report in front of you, and there are a few copies on the front desk for others who may wish to follow along. What we try to do is bring you up to date in the process. The process, as you recall, started back on July 7th at the Planning Board with a decision bringing to your Board of County Commissioners on July 15th, where Phases 1 and 2 of Orchard Park were approved and moved on. Phase 3 was continued, in fact reopened and continued also at July 29th and continued to this date to deal with the issues on Phase 3. The request is for 8 lots on 13.05 acres. The location is the end of Farm Lane, adjacent to the Bitterroot River in the community of Lolo. The project description in brief, as I said, it was 8 lots, is the request now as the revised plat request. It includes a new paved road, which is River Park Drive, and which accesses off of Farm Lane. It also includes river setbacks for a no structure zone 100 foot back from the river water line in all of the wetland riparian area in the southern third of the area. It includes a 20-foot public pedestrian access easement. That's a connection from the very long 30 by 1,250-foot long pedestrian connection which you previously approved connecting Phases 1 and 2 out to this area. But what this does, it takes the pedestrian connection up to River Park Drive, the new road. It doesn't take the people down to the river, nevertheless satisfying the requirement for pedestrian facilities in this particular subdivision. It also contains, the submittal contains, a 150-foot building restriction line to any house. As I mentioned, the applicant in their submittal has revised it slightly back in July, where they combined, originally we were thinking 9 lots, and they combined what were then called lots 8 and 9 into one lot, lot 8, because much of lot 8 is riparian or wetland or in the low area near the river. And in brief, the conditions recommended and brought forward to your commissioner on page 3, 4, and 5 of your staff report, and I want to bring your attention to just a few of them. Some of them are fairly standard conditions about subdivisions, but I do want to bring your attention to the following condition number 6, that the parkland dedication requirement for this phase can and shall be satisfied by a cash in lieu of parks payment. Number 7 is the waiver of a future RSID, SID for public water and sewer. Number 10 is a reword of an original condition, but basically calling for a vegetation management and retention plan and an erosion control plan along the riverfront areas of Phase 3, where there is some limited erosion on the riverfront and there's a demonstrated riparian area and a sensitive habitat area down along the river. We're asking the applicant to work with the Natural Resources Conservation Service and the Montana Fish and Wildlife and Parks, which you have 2 letters from the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks folks about working out the details of that particular plan. And finally, on condition 11, which pretty much memorializes the submittal, that it's recommended that they be allowed a maximum of 8 lots in Phase 3, that they shall designate a building envelope for each lot, and there will be a building structure setback line to a minimum of 100 foot from the water's edge of the Bitterroot River, which is illustrated on the plat. And furthermore, that any developed lawns and fences or any other development has to set back a minimum of 100 foot from the water's edge, leaving a corridor along the river top there. And that, in sum, is the staff recommendation that's on your table today. Staff is ready to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, David. Any questions for David?
No, I don't, but I think we can hear from the developer's
applicant?
representative.
Does the applicant's representative wish to address us?
Thank you very much. Commissioners, for the record, my name is Nick Kaufman, Land Use Planner with the WGM Group here representing the Murphy family and Kevin Mitty from Shelter West. You have in front of you a staff report. I think you've had a chance to read it and discuss it. We concur with that staff report and would ask that you approve the subdivision based on the conditions recommended by staff. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a continuation of the hearing. Is that the understanding of both commissioners? Then we would take further testimony for anyone who would care to speak, and I would ask that you give your name and where you live, and then give us your testimony, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Suzanne Miller. That's M-I-L-L-E-R. I live at 5375 Terry Lane, Lolo, Montana. I am the first of a group of Lolo residents who would like to speak in opposition to Phase 3 of the Orchard Park subdivision. We would encourage you to deny this petition. For the sake of brevity, a group of us have written a fact of finding, which we will distribute right now. We have also coordinated our testimony. We would like you to be sure to understand that the testimony of each of us will be different and highlight a specific aspect of the subdivision to which we object, but that all of the issues are shared by all of us. The issue I would like to address is the one of the comprehensive plan. I'd like to explain my personal involvement with the Lolo Comprehensive Plan. In March of last year, I approached the Office of Planning and Grants, my husband did actually, about subdividing our own land. We have 13 acres south of the proposed subdivision, Phase 3, to build a residence for my parents. And we were told at that time that this fell within the open space aspect of the Lolo Comprehensive Plan. So we set about getting a copy of that plan to find out what its conditions were. And we found that indeed other neighbors to our north, Mr. Bruce Barrett, for example, had petitioned Office of Planning and Grants for a similar type of a construction permit and was denied on the basis of the open space clause. We were happy to accept that. We believe in the open space clause, and we were delighted, quite frankly, to be living in a community where the citizens over 20 years ago had the foresight to recognize the uniqueness of the property along the Bitterroot River. We were also delighted to live in a community where that plan had teeth, where indeed it was being uniformly applied to all who came forward with subdivision aspirations within that corridor. I was greatly dismayed when, after the planning meeting, which had been held in July, at which the planning board had recommended unanimously denial of Phase 3 of Orchard Park subdivision, that there was a reinterpretation of the Lolo plan between that meeting and your own meeting at the July meeting. I'm sure you're aware of that. It's my understanding that there is a process for amending the Lolo land use plan. That process was not adhered to. All of the citizens of Lolo were basically kept in the dark as to what went on during that 10 days between the planning board and the commissioners meeting. None of us were notified that there was a reinterpretation of the Lolo use plan. We were caught very flat-footed at that meeting. And it seems to us, well, it may not be true, it certainly seems to us on the surface that the large developer comes in with a plan, and that developer is given special consideration. When you compare their response with the response that my family and the Barrett family received with respect to building on this area. I think that if we are to develop in that area, it has to be consistent with the desires of the whole community. The community has spoken very clearly in terms of its need for and desire to retain the Bitterroot River corridor as undeveloped as possible. And to that end, I would like to introduce Peggy Chilcote, who is the chairperson of the Lolo Community Council. We've had several meetings, and at all of those meetings there's been unanimous opposition to Phase 3 of the Orchard Park subdivision. Thank you, Peggy.
Peggy Chilcote, Chairman of the Lolo Community Council. P.O. Box 912, Lolo, Montana 59847. The council wants you to know why the citizens of Lolo requested to work on the amendment process for the Lolo land use plan. Citizens of Lolo felt that the existing land use plan was outdated and had no longer reflected the needs of the area. So at this time, we rely on public comment as to their interpretations of the old plan. Lolo is becoming a community again, and community members are trying to preserve the natural things that make Lolo. Of course, developers may interpret the plan to benefit them. Property owners may interpret the plan differently. The community has a vision of what they want Lolo to be. By the comments heard regarding Phase 3, moderate to high density along the currently eroding riverbank, where adjacent property owners lose footage to the river yearly, is not what the community would like to see, or thoughts that the 78 land use plan would allow. In the 1996 Missoula County Growth Management Themes document, the city and county pledged to work always in cooperation with fellow Missoula city and county citizens, and to address the challenges of growth and change with the following goals in mind. A quote from the themes document. Throughout the process of growth and change, we must preserve the valued characteristics of our communities. To be a truly healthy community, we must achieve two equally important goals. The first, to protect our critical lands and natural resources, such as wildlife habitat, riparian areas, hillsides and water quality and open spaces. And the second, to enhance human resources, such as health and safety, social, educational, recreational, and culture services, employment, and housing. With the themes goal in mind, I'd like to point out some important paragraphs in our land use plan. The first and second paragraph of the introduction. The Lolo land use plan is intended as a supplement to the adopted urban area plan, which is titled A Policy Guide for Urban Growth. The underlying philosophies are the same for both plans, but the background research and citizens' goals and objectives differ, reflecting special circumstances of the Lolo community. This is a general land use plan. The recommended land use pattern is detailed in appearance, but it is meant to be an indication of an optimal land use pattern for the Lolo area. The line separating one land from another should not, except where a natural or man-made geographical separation be present, be considered definite boundaries. There is room for interpretation and flexibility. Keeping this interpretation and flexibility in mind, this property, Phase 3, should only be compared to property that is similar, meaning that it also borders the river, not property that is west of proposed Phase 3. The last paragraph I want to point out in the Lolo land use plan is under the heading Land Use Residential. A residential designation of 6 units per acre is made for the remaining land which lies north of Lolo Creek, except any land which lies within an area restricted because of land capability. The land recommended for residential use at 6 units per acre also lies within an area which will be serviceable by a community sewer and water system, which at this time Phase 3 is not. If a study to be conducted by the County Health Department determines that the expansion of the existing system or the establishment of a new system would be feasible. The proposed Phase 3 will have individual private septic and drain fields for each lot. Is this something that we want by our rivers, keeping in mind that each year there is a loss of land to the river? With this loss of land each year, the required setback of 100 feet is encroached upon. How many years until it is within that 100-foot setback? Again, Lolo would like to remind you of the Planning Board's recommendation for Phase 3 and to have you reread their findings and facts. If you allow development, please consider staff's first recommendation of 3 homes as described in the developer's request on page 2 today. First paragraph, that lots 1, 2, and 3 are as residential and that all other portions are designated as parks and open space. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Diana Mitch-Mantle with a letter from the Community Council.
Hi, I'm Diana Mitchell with the Lolo Community Council. I have a letter here from the council that's addressed to the commissioners. Dear Missoula County Commissioners, the overall intent of the Lolo land use plan is clear. Those areas subject to interpretation were deliberately left that way, open, to allow for modifications as the community's needs and wants changed. The community has spoken, and clearly. They do not want any deviation from the plan as it affects Phase 3 of the Orchard Park subdevelopment. For 20 years, the people of Lolo have been under the impression that our land use plan was a safeguard. Were we mistaken? We felt secure that our desires for our town couldn't be undermined. Modifying the plan sends the signal that our plan has no teeth and that we are not to be taken seriously. We love our town and are not willing to risk our assets to line the pockets of a developer. At what point, when, are the community's and adjacent neighbors' wishes adhered to? After the degradation occurs is not the time to say, whoops, we made a mistake. We are asking for your support. Now is the time to take a stand and back the community of Lolo. The people of Lolo are asking you, the county commissioners, to adhere to the Lolo land use plan as written. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Is there anyone else who'd care to speak in favor of or in opposition?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. My name is Sterling Miller. I live in Lolo. I'm just one lot or two lots south of the proposed development. And I oppose and I urge the commissioners to not approve the proposed Orchard Park Phase 3 development. There are many reasons why the commissioners, in my view, should disapprove this plan. Some of them have already been mentioned. I'll just touch on them briefly. It's inconsistent with the comprehensive plan that has been in place for 20 years. As Peggy mentioned, there's a much higher, the proposal has a much higher housing density than exists in the adjacent lands along the river. Therefore, it's incompatible with the housing density in adjacent areas. The developer is comparing it with housing density to the west rather than the housing density right along the river, which is not an appropriate comparison in my view. Another thing is that we believe there is an appropriate process to follow if the plan was developed in error, as the developer maintains. If a mistakes were made in development of a plan that had received public input, then those changes should be adopted as part of a public process and not sort of behind closed doors where the people that are affected and involved with the plan don't have any chance to participate. There's an ongoing plan process right now to amend the comprehensive plan, and we believe that if the parklands and open space designations, which have been in place for 20 years, are going to be ignored, that they should be or amended, that should be a part of a public process in which the community that's affected has a chance to have its input, and that it's not adequate to have those decisions made by a very few people to ignore a plan that's been in place for 20 years. The developer's arguments for ignoring the comprehensive plan basically exploit some ambiguities in the plan relative to where lines should be drawn. The developer argues that these ambiguities should be ignored or should be resolved in his favor. I would maintain that any ambiguities that exist in the existing plan should be resolved in the favor of the existing plan, pending a public process by which to resolve those ambiguities. And it's not enough just to point out that maybe this line was drawn in the wrong place or that line was drawn in the wrong place. If people are going to maintain that, then they should demonstrate it as a part of a public process in which the community is involved. Also, this plan, this subdevelopment, if it's approved, will affect far more than just local residents. It will affect everybody that uses the river, and this is a very short distance. We live about 500 feet. Our house is 400 or 500 feet away from the river. We see a lot of people floating down the river. We don't believe they can see our house because it's well protected by trees and a wide riparian corridor between us and the river where people float. But if this subdivision is approved, even with the setback, it'll make quite a different character, and that'll affect everybody who floats down the river. More than 20 years ago, on the east side of the river, just below the proposed subdivision. Subdivision was put in place called the Rodeo Ranchette. You can see it on the map there. That subdivision, as anybody who floats the river, has a tremendous impact on it changes the character of your experience floating down the river dramatically. You change from going all the way, you know, pretty much. I mean, there are some houses along the river, up and down the river, an occasional one that you can see, but no subdevelopments until you hit this Rodeo Ranchette on the right. And what this would do, the proposed subdivision would put another one on the left. So that would greatly add additional deterioration to the scenic values of people floating the river, which affects a lot more than just the local residents of the community. Also, there will be contamination of the river by chemicals and unwanted pollutants, which will be discussed by another member of our group. The main thing that I wanted to discuss with you a little bit is about the importance of wildlife corridors. In the last 20 years, I'm a professional wildlife biologist. I've been a wildlife biologist for 30 years. I got my bachelor's degree here at the University of Montana in Missoula, master's and PhD degrees at University of Washington, Seattle. And I've been a practicing wildlife biologist for a long time. And it's very obvious to me, as it was obvious to the biologists and fish, wildlife, and parks who came out and examined the site, that construction of houses in this area would represent a significant impediment to wildlife movement. As it stands now, with this area in a pasture land, it's already an impediment to wildlife movement as it stands to some degree. And that's because, at least on the north part of the area, the riparian plateau, the riparian plain, which is in front, dwindles to nothing. And there's no cover for wildlife moving north and south along the river on the west side of the river. Therefore, it's already an impediment to wildlife moving up and down the river. If you were to add 8 houses there, it would be more than an impediment. It would be an impossible barrier for most species of wildlife. As it stands, there's a lot of deer and other wildlife that move up and down that corridor. There's eagle's nest just a little bit to the north. There's an old osprey nest right on the property. And even recently, a black bear has been seen crossing the area where the Orchard Park subdivision is going to be in place. The science in wildlife management over the last 15 years has been very much concentrated on the importance of corridors. People spend millions of dollars trying to build underpasses under highways and overpasses to try and facilitate wildlife movements. And the science very clearly shows that of all the wildlife corridors that exist, probably the most important are riparian corridors, because wildlife, terrestrial wildlife, and avian wildlife of all species move up and down riparian corridors, and that is the most important corridor of all the kinds that exist that should be protected. And in fact, the Lolo Comprehensive Plan was extremely far-sighted in its recognition that the area along the river should be designated as parkland and open space and so if the planning process was to be reopened and if new science were going to be applied to the designation of this parkland and open space, it would come out far stronger that this area should be preserved as parkland and open space than was possible 20 years ago when the plan was adopted, because all that science about the importance of wildlife corridors was not available at that time. So in conclusion, I just wanted to thank you very much for your attention and encourage you to disapprove this subdivision plan and follow the wishes of the community and to see the benefits, to the long-time benefits to the users of the Bitterroot River who will be deteriorated forevermore if this subdivision is allowed to proceed. The fact that there's already been some deterioration of the river experience doesn't justify continuing it when there are options available, and the commissioners do have options available to disapprove this subdivision, and they have good basis for doing it, and I hope that you will. Thank you very much for your attention. I'd like to introduce Professor Don Beduna.
My name is Don Beduna. I live at 11385 Alamont in Lolo.
You can lift the microphone and then you don't have to break your back.
Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome.
What I would like to stress today is water quality. I'm a professor at the University of Montana. I deal some with restoration ecology. I've talked to many people regarding some of the aspects in regards to water quality. I've also looked at the maps regarding the Lolo Comprehensive Plan, and it all states that there are very, very large concerns about water quality and degradation in this particular area. I am opposed to Phase 3. I am opposed to the development for the reasons that have been brought out by my colleagues, and I also am opposed to it because of the degradation that we will see in water quality and the bank of the river. First, we all know that what we've been talking about is an addition of septic systems. At least 8 septic systems will be added to this particular area. This is very close to the riverbank. This is a very, very coarse soil. The material will likely move very rapidly towards the river. I've talked to Dr. William Wushner, a geologist, hydrogeologist at the University of Montana. He's a nationally known groundwater geologist, and he states that there will be little time for the nitrates to break down before they get into the river. This is obviously undesirable. Second, with more homes, there's going to be more use of lawn chemicals, fertilizers, etc. That will also have the potential to decrease water quality. Third, more development will increase the impervious surfaces around this particular area, leading to further runoff of materials into the river. The commissioners should have letters from both Dr. Johnny Moore, the chair of the Murdoch Biochemistry Lab at the University of Montana, and also Dr. William Wushner, who was the specialist or the scientist that did your own cumulative impacts of groundwater, septic systems, cumulative impacts on the effects of septic systems on our groundwater. You both have you all have letters from these individuals. These are very well-respected geologists, and they have both stated their opposition to this subdivision and to the amount of homes that are being proposed at this time. Also, as I stated before, the maps used in the development of the Lolo Comprehensive Plan also places these areas into the most sensitive for septic system and also for development. As an ecologist that's taught restoration ecology for several years, I know what the influence of this development will be on the riverbank itself. What we will see in time is further degradation, and in time there is likely to be a move to riprap the banks. I am almost certain that if this area would have been riprapped 2 years ago, during that flood, those people that were doing the sandbagging just south of here, those sandbags would have never held. They would have never held because the riprap would have caused the water to flow more rapidly. They would have never been able to hold that water. That was only a 10-year flood event. Phase 3, I don't think, as everyone has pointed out, that it complies with the Lolo Comprehensive Plan. Lolo residents and citizens have relied on this plan for 20 years. At most, what we're stating that should be done here is a very low density of homes, perhaps 1 to 5, or 1 home to 5 acres. The Lolo Comprehensive Plan tells us to protect our waterways. Also tells us to protect our scenic and non-scenic open space, our wildlife. I am requesting you to deny the building of these 8 homes referred to as Phase 3. The developer has been permitted 47 homes In Phase 1 and Phase 2, he's been permitted 47 homes. He's allowed 2 more homes in this area. And then there's been very little open space granted, as far as I'm concerned, to Lolo. The developer, to me, has told me and stated that this is just business. It's not personal, but it's very personal to me. I love these rivers. I think I have floated almost every river in Montana. I'm a kayaker, I'm a canoeer, I'm a rafter. We have chosen to live here partially because of the open space. I know, I am certain that there is more than adequate reason for any court to defend denial of this subdivision. And I am, for one, after spending already considerable resources and time opposing this, and prepared to continue to fight it. Thank you. Next speaker will be Ms. Mulgary.
Good afternoon.
Just pull the mic down.
Thanks. I'm very nervous. This is my first time
We
ever
won't
doing
bite,
this.
I promise.
For sure.
I promise.
My name is Maureen Gary. I prefer Mo. I live at 11385 Alamont, and it's just north of the proposed subdivision. I know and love this river. I watch the wildlife go through every day. Every day there's deer there. And I just saw the 2 bald eagles just return to the snag right across from us on the river. The ospreys chased them off during the year, and they're here now. I don't know, a lot of what I said has already been said, so I'm not going to reiterate it. I believe in community. And I was laying in bed this morning wide awake at about 4 o'clock, wondering what I would tell my children if this process doesn't work. Because we have a plan in place and we have a process to amend that plan if changes need to happen. And I want them to be concerned, active citizens, and I want them to be able to know that there is recourse for them. And I believe that I've been shut down here. I mean, I know the process is still continuing and you haven't made your decision. And I thought of the developer, Nick, when I was in meeting with him last Friday with him and Kevin stating that they have a takings issue. And I thought, wow, you know, they're getting, Ms. Down said they're getting 47 homes, and they can build 2 homes on this acreage there on the Phase 3 of Orchard Park. And I thought, I feel like I have a takings issue, a takings from the community, that this, you know, this is something that we spent years, and you spent years in watching the development of this Lolo comprehensive plan, and you adopted it 20 years ago, and you asked for support from the community, and the Lolo Community Council was adopted, and I've heard from all of them, and I'm behind everybody else that's spoken here in opposition to Phase 3 of the Orchard Park development, and I trust the right thing will be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Phil O'Connell. I'm a lawyer in town. I have been working with Sterling and Suzanne Miller and Don Beduna and Mo Gary on this. I encourage them to speak for themselves because, as you can see, they can express themselves much better than I could hope to do. I do want to sum up a few of the things that they have said. The fundamental issue here is that the proposed Phase 3 of Orchard Park is not in compliance with the Lolo Comprehensive Plan. That plan calls for this land to be parks and open space. You can see it on the photo behind you that this is land directly adjacent to the river that is not adjacent to heavily developed lands. Now, Suzanne and Sterling and Don and Mo have told you about their concerns about how this development will adversely impact wildlife, how it will adversely impact water quality by having 8 new individual septic systems directly adjacent to the river, how it's going to adversely impact other landowners up and down the Bitterroot River when these 8 new homeowners come in and put in riprapping, as they inevitably will, and how it was going to adversely impact the scenic viewshed here and the recreational experiences of everybody who floats the Bitterroot River. Now, when we do comprehensive planning, Those are some of the criteria that we look at when we decide how land is to be used. The people in Lolo and the Planning Office and the Board of County Commissioners did an analysis 20 years ago and decided that this land adjacent to the Bitterroot River should best be saved as open space. That's what the plan clearly says. The Planning Board earlier this year recognized that and recommended denial of this subdivision. Then something happened and the plan was reinterpreted. Now, I haven't heard anybody speak at this meeting or the last meeting about how it came to pass that the County Attorney's Office and the Office of Planning and Grants decided that they needed to reinterpret what had been clearly stated 20 years ago and enforced consistently for the past 20 years. My best understanding is that people looked at some of the soil studies that were done at the time of the comp plan and said, well, based on these soil studies, this was not properly designated as open space. Open space is not designated simply on soil studies and the susceptibility of the land for different uses. It takes into consideration a lot of different factors. This is riparian land that is very important to us as a community. That's one of the reasons we designated open space. This is a part of a very important scenic viewshed in the Lolo community. That's another reason we designate it as open space. This is land adjacent to a river where individual septic systems are going to pollute the river. That's another reason why we designate it as open space. It's also eroding riverfront land where if we do development of $500,000 homes, we're going to have riprap, and that riprap is going to have adverse effects all up and down the river. Those are all reasons why this land has been and should be designated as open space, not susceptible to intense development. As Don and Mo and Sterling and Suzanne and many others have said, we have a plan in place. We should follow that plan. As the folks from the Community Council have told you, why are we wasting our time redoing a plan, investing dozens of people, investing hundreds if not thousands of hours of community time and planning if the Board of County Commissioners will not actually enforce the plan? Mo mentioned this takings issue, and I don't know whether that is something that you have heard about or not, but there has been scuttlebutt flowing around about people concerned about, well, if you don't allow this subdivision, then somebody's going to sue you because this is an improper taking. That's not true. This is a subdivision that involves 3 phases. It came in as a single subdivision proposal from one landowner to you to develop, I don't know the exact number, 60 or 70 houses. You have already approved 47 houses. Those 47 houses are in an area that was planned for intense residential development, and the developer got the intense development he requested. He came in and asked you to break the comprehensive plan here. And the planning staff is recommending to you that you ignore the comprehensive plan and allow intense residential development in an inappropriate location. If you deny it, there is no taking. The law is in a state of flux, but the law says that there is no taking by planning, zoning, subdivision review, so long as there is a process in which everybody has an opportunity to be heard, as happened here, so long as there is a rational reason for the designation in the plan, and so long as the landowner is not stripped of all of his potential uses. Mr. Murphy can continue the existing historical use of this land. This land has always been used for agriculture and pasture. No one is saying that he cannot continue to do that. In fact, as has been pointed out, under existing law, he has the right to construct 2 homes on this land. No one is taking that away from him. This community has gone through a very lengthy and detailed planning process to adopt a plan. It is based on good science and good reason, and it has not deprived Mr. Murphy of his rights to do reasonable things with his land. What it says is that as a community, we don't want you putting 8 big houses on the banks of the Bitterroot River because they're better suited for other places, and this land is best suited for open space. On behalf of my clients, I encourage you to deny the proposed subdivision. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd care to speak?
Good afternoon. I'm Len Broberg. I live at 400 Petty Canyon Drive here in Missoula, 59803.